Welcome to Classic Trials. If you're new here, my name is Alita. I'm a lawyer licensed in California and DC, and on this channel, we make sense of the law one bite at a time. In this series, we observe and analyze the play-by-play of some of the biggest trials that have shaped the public consciousness of the American judicial system. In this season, we're working our way through the case of California v. Erik and Lyle Menendez. Growing up in Princeton, New Jersey, and then Beverly Hills, California, these young men had everything they could ever want, or so it seemed, until one night on August 20th, 1989, they approached Jose and Kitty Menendez with newly purchased shotguns. Put on trial for murdering their own parents, they claimed self-defense, arguing they were terrorized in their own home by abusive parents until they could take no more. Which argument is more convincing? Come join and see for yourself. Whoops, I forgot to turn on my camera. Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and a happy Halloween to all of you, wherever you are. I hope that you're having a great day. What do you guys think about the new intro? I kind of put that together, and I might make some tweaks to it for next week and for moving on forward. But I don't know. I figured Classic Trials, it's its own series. It probably should have its own special intro. So I'm seeing it in the chat. Some folks are liking it. That's good. I'm glad. I love to see that. So, I apologize. I'm not dressed up for Halloween. I was hoping to come up with something, but I do have a Friends t-shirt, so we can say that I'm like kind of sort of dressed up. I mean, you guys know by now, right? Like we're in episode 3 here that I like to dress up with some kind of a reference to the 90s. So far I'm 3 for 3 with this. So, yeah. Let's say hello to folks in the chat here. What do we got here? We've got Nina Albrechtsen from Denmark. Hello, how are you? Iris, good morning all from New York. Hope everyone had a good weekend and happy Halloween. Ryan Gallo, good morning from Modesto, California. Happy Halloween. Nanine, good morning everyone from North Carolina. KP, hello from Texas. MK, hello from the Greater Toronto area. It's good. Oh, good. I'm so glad. So glad. Let's see here. What else have we got? We've got some more folks in here. All right. We've got Jessica Lambert from the UK. Happy to see you on. Yeah. Just put an apron on, right? I was thinking all I need is an apron with this. We've got Princess Candlewax. Hello from Massachusetts. Genergy from Sicklerville. Good to see you again. Gina D. Good to see you again. Hi from Boca Raton, Florida. And then we've got Arto Rissanen from freezing Finland as usual. Jill's Joys from Jacksonville, Florida. German Wehrmacht. Sorry. German or German? It's probably German Wehrmacht, right? Because it sounds German. Good morning from Arizona. All right. Let's see. Where else? We've got Aaron Morgan from Bristol, UK. Just started raining heavy. Oh, that's perfect, right? I love that on a good Halloween because then it makes it all nice and cozy, I guess. Soka Toa from SoCal. Love to see it. All right, let's see. Where else? We've got Christine Bucci Walker from Livonia, Michigan. Hazo one from Alberta, Canada. On the ground from Spain. Buenos dias. Debbie Faison Cook from Gainesville, Florida. The Great Green. Let's see. The Great Green Arkle Seizure. Okay. Hello from the UK. Hi. Victoria McWilliams. Hey from Texas. Sarah Scherbel from Munich, Germany. We've got Bailey Allison Debubububs. All those bees from Lynchburg, Virginia. Plant Freak from Quebec. Awesome. All righty. Fun times. Thanks so much for the super chats. I think we should start every day with with a go Astros. You know, fun times. You know I'm a Dodgers fan, so you know I can't do that. I can't have that in my channel. But nevertheless, good for you guys, I guess. Let's get a couple more here. Why not? We got Kate Leslie from Western North Carolina. Just registered for spring semester classes. Woohoo! Last year of grad school. Congrats. Are you going to take a last first day of school picture, or is that only in the fall? Because I remember in law school, a lot of people did that on their doorsteps. It was really cute. It was really funny. Robbie Dobby from Nova Scotia. Hello from a very beautiful fall day in Nova Scotia. Oh, I'm sure it's beautiful. I'm sure. Jawa Jill, hi from South Africa. Love to see it. Of course, Secret McSquirrel, still Scotland. Mummy Evans, too. Good afternoon from England. And Mantha Johnny, hello from sunny yet cold Montreal. Wonderful. Okay, so initially I was thinking that I was going to do actually a bit of a longer day today, like 3 hours worth of testimony, because I really wanted to get into it. But we've got the hearing in Daryl Brooks to set the sentencing hearing. It's not the actual sentencing hearing. A little bit of confusion with that when I typed a little too quickly with my initial posting about it. But we're going to be dovetailing from this live stream into that live stream. So I've already set it up so that this automatically goes into it. So if you guys are in the chat, when I end this live stream, it should go directly into the other one. So you'll get right into the Brooks hearing there. So, so stick around with us and we'll be able to watch both. So anyhow, with that, let's get into it. We might have some guests coming on. I had some folks saying that they were probably going to be able to pop in for a bit. So, otherwise though, let's go ahead and get into it. Like I said, we've got a lot of witnesses. Originally it was going to be 6, but I think it's probably going to be more like 4 because of our timing. Okay. Here we go. Okay. And is that everything that I needed? I think that was everything. Okay. All right. I might remember as soon as I start playing this, of course. Oh, and I'm also going to boost some sound here. So let me know how this sounds to you guys in comparison to like my voice.
Lyle Menendez is in the audience.
Is that too loud? I'm going to wait for folks on the chat because I just boosted it up quite a bit. And there's always a little bit of a delay. I am louder. Okay, but it's good. Sounds good. Okay. Okay, good. All right. Cool. All right. Then let's get with it.
You folks have never had a chance to see each other before, so now you do. And we're now ready to resume with the.
And hey, Natalie, how's it going?
Hey, sorry I'm late. How are you?
Oh, that's all right. I'm doing well. I was just explaining kind of what's going to be happening today with this stream and then going into the Daryl Brooks stream. I know that you said that you're going to be showing it on your channel too.
Sure,
so
yeah.
if anybody prefers to see, if you've been watching with Natalie and you prefer to see the end or almost the end with Natalie, that is yeah, definitely go and check that out as well. But otherwise, how are you? I saw that you had a trial recently.
Yes, I am good. I'm finally recovered. I needed to like physically and mentally recover from it and then prepare for this week's worth of cases. But I've done that and I'm feeling a lot better now. It was a great trial, but scary because my client was facing a lot of time. So I'm very, very happy with the outcome.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that. Okay. Well, we're about to get started with some testimony, and we're gonna see from the first witnesses. So, judges just addressing the juries, multiple.
Right.
So, and then yeah, we'll get into it. And just let me know if there's anything that you want, if you want me to pause it. We might talk over it. I might pause it from time to time. There's ads. There's periodic ads in these also. So, and it's not YouTube. It's on Court TV's website. So YouTube Premium does nothing for it. Okay. So I'll just kind of pull away from the screen when those run, and then it'll give us a chance to chat. So
what do you know about this case? Like, did you do research on this before you started streaming?
I did a little bit, but not too much because I didn't want to. I mean, anyone who's been watching, like generally speaking, people know they are in prison. They were convicted ultimately, but they actually had 2 trials. This is actually the first one.
Okay.
So we've got 2 different juries, and so we watched 2 sets of opening statements already, and then and now we're getting into the witness testimony. I think most of the witness testimony is going to be the same in both cases. I can't see why there would be any differences in the witnesses because they were both there at the same time, and it's like the same. So yeah, but
fascinating. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, cool.
Trial, the people may call their first witness.
The people call Ms. Christine Nye to stand.
So we're going to hear from some people ostensibly some neighbors, 2 police officers, and other than that, I think other people that knew them.
Ooh, that dress. I love it.
Very 90s.
Yeah, wow. What a time capsule that whole look is.
Oh, yeah.
Feathered hair. Wow.
Oh, she's a police dispatcher. I was not expecting that
August the 20th of 1989,
from her outfit.
approximately 11:47 p.m. Did you receive a phone call from a male individual?
Yes, I did.
And did you, prior to coming here today, listen to a tape recording of the phone call to which I'm referring?
Yes, I did.
And was that tape recording an accurate reflection of the events that transpired that night?
Yes, it was.
And was your voice on that tape?
Yes, it was.
Counsel, if I could just interrupt, if you could turn on that microphone in front of you so we can hear you.
It is on.
Okay.
A second.
Yeah, and I'm also going to be collecting some of the questions to answer during some of these breaks too.
Sure.
Both juries can hear you because your back is to one jury.
Ooh.
Oh, okay.
All right.
It's not me, I promise.
Ms. Nye, on the dispatch are 2 voices which should be familiar to you. Aside, there's your voice and then there's another voice of a man who appears to be someone in the room with you. Could you tell me who that was, please?
Yes, it was Nick Tatone.
Could you spell his last name for the court reporter?
Last name is Tatone. He was my partner that night.
Your Honor, I have here 2 tapes, one for either jury. I'd like to mark them as people's 1 and 2 or 1A and 1B, or how does it?
Any exhibits will be marked just
1, 2, 3.
just one, and the duplicates will be handled by the clerks.
All right.
If you have an exhibit, you can mark the exhibit 1, and the clerk will take care of the duplicates.
All right, so Your Honor, I have 2 exhibits, each of which I'm now marking as 1. Is that correct?
Yes.
May I approach, please, Your Honor?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, may I have the first permission to play that tape?
Is it in the
Yes.
player?
Yes, it is.
All right. Go ahead. Is there a transcript of that tape?
Yes, Your Honor, may we approach, please, on that?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's proceed then. You may approach the witness.
Thank you.
And if you intend to play the tape, let me ask counsel, do you stipulate that the court reporter need not
Oops. What happened here? That was weird.
take down the
Oh, I think I
proceedings as the
pressed
tape
my
is
airbud by
being played?
accident.
Yes.
All right.
Beverly Hills emergency? Yes, police. What's the problem? What's the problem? What's the problem? That's how I tell my parents.
This is a 911 call.
Are you still there? Yeah. The people no. Were they shocked? Yes, were they shocked? Yes. They were shocked? Yes. What happened? Is the person still there? What happened? We have you zero. What happened? Who shot who? I don't know. You came over, saw him, who shot? You're in back? You know, that's still in the house. The people that did the shooting. Okay. Let me talk to Erik. Who is the person that was shot? My mom and my dad. Your mom and dad? Okay, hold on a second.
Yeah, so folks in the chat, she's a police dispatcher. I wasn't expecting that based on how she's dressed, but
Hmm.
Hello, this is police department. Yeah. Okay, I want you to come outside. Okay, just come out the front door. And my brother. You tell your brother, everybody that's here, come outside.
Hmm.
it's interesting to start with that right off the bat.
The events of that evening. Oh, sorry. Now, in the tape, it appears that a phone call was
Are
made
those
near the
the-
very end of
one
the
of the
tape.
Menendez
You can hear
brothers
the
on the
tones of the touch-tone
911?
phone. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay,
I think it was
the,
Lyle.
house involved
Got
actually
it,
called
okay.
back by the police
Okay,
department?
that's why it's admissible.
And
Okay.
how was it that the police department knew the phone number so that they could call back?
It comes in on our 911 screen. We get a 911 call. It gives us the phone number and the address on the screen.
So during the first phone call, was that information then flashed onto your screen?
Yes.
May I have a moment, please, Your Honor?
Yes.
Yeah,
Ms.
Debbie
Nye,
Faison Cook.
were you on duty?
I
the
think so. I
entire
think that
evening
emotion was
night?
real.
I honestly don't remember what time I started, but I believe I started mid-evening. I'm
What
not
is
sure.
mid-evening?
About 10 o'clock.
Did you receive any phone calls prior to the 911 call reporting shots fired?
No.
Let me just finish.
I'm sorry.
Shots fired in the neighborhood or vicinity of the North Elm location.
No, we didn't.
So the first notice you had was this phone call that's
Mhm.
in People's One. Is that
Yes.
correct? Thank you. I have nothing further.
Cross-examination?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Nye, you had been with the Beverly Hills Police Department how long back in 1989?
But then I was a little over 2 years.
All right. And during the 2 years, were you working as a dispatcher?
Yes.
And as a dispatcher, you would take calls about crimes, is that correct?
Yes.
And would it be fair to characterize this particular call as a highly emotional one?
Yes.
That is based on your experience and during the time that you worked as a dispatcher for Beverly Hills.
Yes.
Was there any other contact with this residence on Beverly, with the people inside 722 North Elm Drive, other than what we heard on the tape recorder?
From my standpoint,
Yes, that
No.
you had.
no.
And did you yourself dial back the second call?
No, that was my partner.
And how long after the first call was that you dialed back or your partner dialed back?
It was probably 20 to 30 minutes.
20 to 30 minutes?
I believe, I'm not certain. I really don't know the time frame there.
Do you have any recollection as to when units were dispatched to 722 North Elm Drive?
Immediately.
And do you have any recollection based on what you were able to monitor as to when those units actually arrived at the home?
They probably arrived within 1 to 2 minutes.
And do you think that based on their arrival time at the home, you could be wrong about the time that might be passing?
Yes, I could be wrong. Now I'm thinking in my mind they set up a perimeter before, but I'm not sure whether that's before they went in the house or before they asked us to call and have them come out. I mean, I'm really not certain.
All right, thank you very much.
Your Honor, may I approach, please?
Any cross-examination
Oh.
by the defendant Lyle Menendez?
Defendant.
Yes, just. You said you didn't receive any other calls that night relating to this matter, correct?
Correct.
Were there other dispatchers who would have been receiving calls relating to this matter?
Well, there were only 2 of us there. That was myself and Nick Patone up until about 10 o'clock that night.
And so he could have been receiving calls from other people while you were handling this?
Oh, yes, he could have been, yes.
So you're speaking for yourself?
Well, can I just say one thing? We did mention the fact, why didn't anyone ever call us on that? That we got no shooting calls at all. We talked about that night, because
And,
that's unusual.
and do you know whether any other calls were, any documentation was made as to whether any calls were received that night?
No, I don't know for a fact.
Okay. And a group of documents that has to be marked as Exhibit 2. Exhibit 2. May I approach a witness?
Yes.
Thank you. Showing you Exhibit 2. Do you know what that is?
It's, yeah, I saw this prior to coming in here. Just times of when people were dispatched.
And that's a document that relates to this case, correct?
Correct.
And that shows that the first call was received on what time?
2347.
And the next activity that's indicated in your records is what?
Well, the paramedics were dispatched
What time were they dispatched?
at 2348,
And what time was the callback made?
at 2351.
So it wasn't 20 to 30 minutes. Was
No, it wasn't.
How long was it before the callback was made?
Within 2 minutes, 3 minutes.
Could I see that, please? Thank you. And on the second page, does it also indicate that some neighbors called in?
Yes, this was after the fact.
Okay, what time did neighbors first call in?
0043, it would be 1:45
Quarter to 1 on which date?
on, that would be August 21st.
And you received your call shortly before midnight?
Mm-hmm.
And this call from a neighbor came in shortly after midnight, correct?
Yes,
There were other calls there from neighbors later on?
yes.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Any redirect?
Just briefly, the document Peoples 2, which,
Exhibit 2.
excuse me, Exhibit 2, that's about the defense attorney district. Could you explain to me how this document is prepared, if you know?
I don't,
All right.
no.
And is the entry here about the callback being at 21:51, does that refresh your memory as to when, in fact, the callback was made to 722 North Elm?
Well, yeah, now that I see it, it was almost 4 years ago, but yes.
Okay, thank you. I have nothing further.
Anything else from either counsel?
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. You may step down. Your next witness.
Yes, Your Honor. People call Mrs. Avrille Krom to the
All right, so this is going to be an advertisement.
Yeah.
Mute it just in time. So that was
Yeah,
really
you're great. You were really on time with that. Yeah. So, all right. So again, I'm coming at this from like a state of I only heard about this case in my childhood
Mhm.
and know absolutely nothing about it. So that's one of the sons calling 911. Is that right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay. And this case has already gone on trial and ended in a mistrial previously.
This is the trial that results in that mistrial.
This is going to be a mistrial. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
these guys are in prison right now, right?
They are. Yeah.
Okay. So you get to react to this with someone who's like really, oh, hi puppy, who's
Oh,
really,
yeah.
really reacting to this. I really am not familiar with this at all.
I mean, I know those general details, but beyond that, I know the defenses. So like, I know the broader brushstrokes here, but the
Yeah.
finer details, I don't know. So some people have some very strong opinions about this case.
Oh,
So I mean, I'm kind of rolling through it along with you.
yeah.
Yeah, because I was very young when this trial happened and
Yeah.
definitely too young to be watching a trial like this.
Yeah.
So yeah. So we're kind of going
Interesting.
through it. We're kind of going through it at the same time and giving our impressions just off the bat.
Okay.
I feel like story-wise, this feels like a very rough start to this trial for the prosecution.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. Yeah. I'm always, I'm a defense attorney, so I'm always a little critical of the prosecution, but I feel like, wouldn't you want to start with someone to tell the story of like who these people are and what happened? Because we're all kind of like jurors right now. We don't know anything about the case. I'm sure it got some pretrial publicity, but people aren't going to know the facts. So you just hear people yelling and screaming and then technical things to get the video or the audio in. It's just a little off-putting and disengaging.
Yeah. So because the thing is, like, so we listened to that 911 call that sounded very emotional,
Mhm.
but we don't have anywhere to really place that in the narrative, in the storyline,
No.
and like you had to ask, you're like, is that one of the sons that shot them? Like that's on the tape?
Mhm.
Like what's happening
Mhm.
here? So I would have wanted them to start with like maybe one of the officers that actually arrived that night, to say like, I got a
Yeah.
call to say that this happened. So then I showed up and this is what I found. Gruesome
Yeah.
way to start, but effective. But maybe one of the next witnesses will help to sort of like give the story and they'll like replay the 911 call maybe to
Yeah.
like, like there's going to be a play. It'll have been advantageous for them to have already introduced it. I'm not sure.
Yeah. I don't know. A friend of mine's, not a friend of mine's, a trial. Why did I just say a friend of mine's? A trial I just had, not this trial I just had, but one I had this year. It was a murder case, and the prosecutor started with a family member of the victims to say like who they were, what their names were, how old they were, where they, and like, so
Yeah.
you're not gonna really get a lot of objections on relevance to that, just to establish that this was a living person, but at least to give you some like connection to what's going on and like who these people are within the world. I don't even know that. I don't even know who the victims are at this point. I don't know
Yeah.
anything. I just know that there are people yelling and screaming. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
that- it's
Yeah.
a little
Exactly.
interesting. Okay.
All right. Yeah. Let me get we've got some super chats from Rob here. Says, save me from CLE madness. Just spent the past hour reviewing updates to special needs trust laws. I need some
Ugh.
trial time to re-inject sanity to my day. Well, Rob, if you want to join and just don't tell the
Yeah.
bar.
Yeah.
But no.
Just join and like turn your camera off and then listen to your CLE on the side. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
fine.
It works. It works. And then he says, really important question. Has anyone ever said, may I approach the witness and have the judge say, no, I've never seen it.
I've never seen it either.
I haven't. I
I've
haven't
never
either.
seen it. I've had judges tell me, permission to move about the courtroom freely. But I have had judges, like when I go up to the state, be like, oh, ask for permission before you approach the state. And I'm like, what do you think I'm going to do to them? I just need to like, what are you talking about? But yeah, like it's always good to ask permission, but I've never had permission be denied.
Yeah, fair. It's almost like it's more of an etiquette thing than anything
It's a
else.
formality.
Yeah. And then Mantha Johnny says, question for Legalbytes, is there a default of who gets to go first in calling a witness, defendant or prosecutor, or does it depend on the case? It's the prosecution is generally going to be the first to put on their whole case in chief. So all of the witnesses in the first half are going to be prosecution witnesses, and then afterwards the defense will get their chance to put on their witnesses. And the reason for that is because the state has the burden of proof here. So they can reserve some time afterwards for a rebuttal after the defense puts their witnesses on as well. But they have to be like, it's like very limited purpose for like responding to the things that the defense has put on.
Perfectly said. And I would also just note that the defense does not have to put on any witnesses, just in case anyone didn't know that. Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah. Very good point. Spoken like a true defense attorney. Alrighty. So here's the next witness.
Okay. Everyone is so sharp. Oh my goodness.
I know.
I'm Avrille Krom.
Classy lady.
I know.
Avrilekrom.
I feel like she's from the country club, that like she knew their mom.
Please, and take a deep breath. Do you remember the night of August the 20th of 1989?
Yes.
And sometime that evening, did you hear some noises that caught your attention?
Yes.
Could you tell us what you heard, please?
I had heard some sounds going off, and I thought that there were
Oh, is there?
Chinese firecrackers.
Maybe a slight
Mrs.
echo on
Krom,
your.
Where were you physically
I'll mute.
located when you heard these
Okay,
noises?
thanks.
I was in my bedroom.
Now, where do you live in relationship to the Menendez home?
I'm 2 houses down. There's one house in between the 2 houses
Would you be 2 houses closer to Wilshire or closer to Sunset?
to Wilshire.
And you were in your bedroom, is that correct?
Yes.
Did you have any windows open in your bedroom that night?
Yes, it was a hot night and all the windows were open.
Do you remember about what time it was that you heard the noises?
It was between 10 and 10:15.
Is there a way that you can remember what time it was?
Yes, because my daughter was going out and I didn't really want her to go because I felt it was getting late in the evening. And I told her she had to be back by 10:30. So it meant she had 10 minutes or 15 minutes to run up to see her friend who was living a little bit up the road.
She sounds South African.
Now,
I'm just
can you
leaving
describe
that
the
there.
noises
Yeah.
you heard particularly? In other words, how many noises did you hear and for how long a period of time?
It was a series of like popping. There were, I would say, about a half a dozen of these pops, and then there was a little lag,
A little what?
a lag in the time, and then they started popping again.
Okay, by a lag in time, you mean there was a period of time where there was no popping noises?
Just a short period of time, and that's why I had thought that they were Chinese firecrackers.
Okay.
Because
What do you know about Chinese firecrackers?
I only remember from when I was a child, they had there was a series of little wicks, and as they popped along on the one side, and then it flipped to the other side, and then they started again. But there was a time lag in between from the time, I don't know if it's the same in this country, but from the time that they popped on the one side till they ignited on the other, there was a time lag. And that's why I had thought that these were Chinese firecrackers.
Was anyone else present in the room with you when you heard the noise?
Yes, my son.
Okay. Did your son want to call the police?
Yes.
Can I stop for a minute and ask that you sit down?
Oh, Your Honor, I'm sorry.
Just sit down.
Okay.
Oh,
Go ahead.
All right.
some judges have real weird
Mrs.
rules.
Krom,
What?
did your son want to call the police?
Yes.
That's
And
weird.
did
That is
you
weird.
Dissuade him from doing that?
Yes, I wouldn't let him.
Okay, thank you. I have nothing further.
Cross-examination.
And I've had judges get mad at me for not standing up.
Good afternoon.
It could be the mic.
Maybe.
Is it okay if I move this? for you?
I
Krom,
don't
you
think I'll
live
ever get
south
over how
of where
crowded
the
this courtroom
Menendez
is.
home was at that time, is that correct?
Yes.
And these homes along Elm Drive are rather close together, isn't that true?
Yes.
The amount of space that separates you from the next house to the north is very narrow, isn't that true?
He looks like an
I
actor.
don't know what you mean by very narrow, but it's not a huge amount of space. No.
Well,
He
for
does look like an
instance, is it
actor.
about the space where you were sitting
Joa
to the
Jill.
wall? to
She's
your
100%
right
South
there?
African. Joa Jill's from South Africa.
the
too,
next
so she-
house?
Oh,
she'd know
okay,
that.
yeah. I recognize that
From
accent
my
anywhere.
house? No, it's
Yeah.
more than that.
From the side that's nearest your house to your next door neighbor's side wall, how far would you say it is?
At least double that size, that amount of size.
And you say
What you're
that
talking about from where you are to that wall?
Yeah,
Okay.
double that space.
yeah,
correct?
That's 15 feet from where the witness is to the
Right.
wall.
And you say the windows in your house were open that night?
yes,
Where were you in the house?
in my bedroom, which is the south. Wait a minute, let me get this right. The northeast side of the house.
There's an alley that runs in back of your house, is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes,
And that is an alley that's toward Maple Street?
right.
And is that where you nearest the back of the house toward the alley?
Correct.
And the Menendez home also faces back on that same alley, is that right?
Correct.
What were you doing when you heard these noises? Do you recall?
I was talking. I think I was talking to my son. I know I was talking to my son because he said, "I'm going to call the police," and I said, "You're not going to call. Don't be ridiculous."
And in terms of what you heard, these popping sounds, is it correct to say that these popping sounds were in very quick succession,
Yes.
as in pop, 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 pop?
Yes.
And I think you also indicated that there was somewhat of a lag, correct?
Yes.
But that was a very short period of time, correct?
Correct.
Almost instantaneously before you started hearing it popping again, correct?
Yeah, not instant. There was a time lag. You know, it's been 4 years, but
Sure.
I remember thinking that it was definitely the Chinese firecrackers. So definite was I. But because I imagined that it was igniting on the other side.
All right, let me ask you this. Do you recall the next day after you heard these sounds that a police officer came to your door and knocked on the door?
Yes,
And you recall that at some point after the police officer knocked on your door that he had you come down to the police station and actually interviewed you about what you had heard that night. Do you remember that?
I never went down to the police station. My daughter did. I didn't.
Were you interviewed at some point on
Yes.
a tape recorder?
Yes.
Where did that interview take place?
At my house.
And that was the very next morning after you heard these sounds, correct?
Correct.
Would it be fair to say that your recollection of what you heard that night would have been best that next morning?
Yes.
And would it be fair to say that your recollection was probably much better than it is today, 4 years ago?
Oh, sure.
I want to play you a little portion of your interview with a police officer so we can see if it helps you remember
Okay.
how the sequence of the shots went, okay?
Okay.
Deborah Stallings, thanks so much for your super chat.
Yes.
Yeah, and I was thinking about this too, Law and Lumber, is that the murder weapon was a shotgun. There were two of them. And she says she heard pop, 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 which is not really the sound that I would normally hear for a shotgun.
And then while I'm doing that, Exhibit 4 will be a series of photographs.
Yeah, and they did have two guns.
7.
If you're going to refer to them individually, you can mark them 4A through.
Were they shooting at the same time?
Letters.
I think so. I mean, yeah, they both entered at the same time. I don't know exactly who shot which parent or what, but and how many times. So those are the details that I don't know about.
Could that account for the shots being so close together? I don't know.
Could be. Yeah.
Weird.
Maybe stipulated that the court reporter need not take down the tape recorder.
And Debbie, no, they don't
Is it
teach
stipulated
that in
by
law school, but
counsel?
I do have some familiarity with some firearms.
By the way, this was an interview where your daughter was present and also your son, correct?
I don't have any recollection of.
Well, listen to this. This picks up right in the middle
Okay.
of a conversation, and you tell me if this is your voice on here.
Josh, you heard some sounds that you thought might be gunshots?
Yeah, in the middle of watching a movie and tribute to the clean air, clean up that shot down. And it was about halfway in between, and it was around about 10. And then I started hearing shots about 6 in a row.
And this is from you also, heard them?
I heard them too. And I thought they were trying to find because they were like,
And Josh, you looked out the back window and saw nothing, right?
Just that portion.
Rob,
Was that
I
your
agree.
voice on there?
Yeah.
And at least at that time, that is the very next morning afterwards, you characterized it as pop, 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 correct?
Yeah.
And is that, at that time, you were trying to be as accurate as to what you heard as possible?
Well, I wasn't asked about any time lag. So, I mean, I know that they didn't, was at the best of my ability at that point. I mean, I didn't know I was supposed to elaborate on all of that, but
Right.
it was a series of popping, but they came directly, and then there were some that lagged afterwards. But I was never asked about that.
All right, and does listening to that help you refresh your memory that the second sound of pops that you heard was very shortly after the first
Yes.
group?
Yes.
So they were all bunched in right close in time?
Yeah.
There's one house between your residence and the Menendez residence, correct?
Yes.
And Dan, could I approach your witness room?
Yes.
Thank you. Showing you Exhibit 4A, does that photograph depict your driveway where a blue truck is parked?
Yes.
And in the upper right-hand corner of that photograph is a white house. Is that the Menendez home?
Yes.
So that's how far your house is from the Menendez house,
Right.
correct? So it's fairly easy for you to hear those shots at night, is that correct?
Yes.
And is that another shot showing the distance between your house and the Menendez home?
Yes.
What was that?
That is 4B. And does 4C accurately show the distance between the Menendez home and the home right to the north of it?
Correct.
And is 4D a close-up of that same
Yes.
photograph showing the distance between the two homes?
Yes.
Is 4E a photograph showing?
So funny how
back
today it's
alleyway
like they have their own
behind your house?
screen. They're
Yes.
able to view it on the
You'll see
screen
there's-
instead.
Looks like a blue Volvo parked there.
Yes.
Is that blue Volvo parked right in front of your home?
Oh, s-
Real life trials are
census, yeah.
surprisingly more lo-fi and
And the
closer
Menendez
to
home
this than what
is
we see on
In
TV a
front
lot
of the
of
blue
times.
Volvo.
There's been
where
plenty of
the
times I've handed up
first
just
set
a
of garbage
picture.
cans
yeah.
are.
Right, next to the white guest house there. Sorry, next
It's
to
just
the
funny
white,
with a
guest
high
house.
profile trial
There's a
though.
white guest house.
Is that another photograph 4F showing the same distance between the back of the Menendez home and your home, which is depicted
Yes,
in the lower left-hand corner where there's appears to be a white
right,
fence?
fence, yeah.
And 4G,
Agreed, Rob.
does that show the distance between the back of the Menendez home and the house
Yes,
directly adjoining it, which would be 720
right,
Elm Drive?
right.
Thank you very much. You sell real estate?
Yes.
Do you know what your lot size is?
Do you know, I don't. I think it's
That was a-
225, 90 by 225.
And is that about the same size as the lots?
I noticed
on
that
the-
too,
on
Rob.
the street?
It gets a little bit
Yeah.
bigger as the block goes higher.
As you go north,
Yeah.
they get larger.
It gets a little bit
But in
larger.
your block, that's about the block size?
Yes.
Thank you.
That was a
All right, any cross-examination on behalf of the defendant?
that was a
Erik
nifty little way
Menendez?
to do that.
Mrs. Krom, did you speak with any police officers on the evening of August 20th?
Yeah, yes. That was the next day you're talking about?
No, this is the same evening that you heard the noise.
No.
And did you first speak with the police the next morning?
Yes.
And when did they come to your house?
6:30 in the morning, somewhere around there.
Did you speak with them at that time?
No.
Did you speak with them later?
Yes.
Approximately when was it that you spoke with them, with the police?
About 8:30.
Okay, and that was at your home?
Yes.
Did you become aware that either your daughter or your son had spoken to the police when they came to the house at about 6:30 in the morning?
So you asked,
Did you-
was I aware of
Yeah.
that?
Did you hear anybody speaking to them when they first came? at
No,
6:30?
there was somebody knocking on the door at 6:30, and I figured I'm not going to bother with it, so I didn't answer.
Was the person that you spoke to later on that morning a person by the name of Edmonds, a Sergeant Edmonds?
Forgive me, I'm terrible with names. I don't know. It may have been.
Did the person that spoke to you take notes?
Yes.
And these were notes that were taken down as you were being interviewed?
You know, I don't remember, but I think so. I mean, I remember when they interviewed my daughter that they were taking a lot of notes, and I think that must have fallen off with.
Now, were these notes being taken that you saw while they interviewed your daughter? Was that at the same time as the tape recording was going on, or was that at a different time?
I'm not sure at which interview this recording was done because I got interviewed quite a few times. And I really don't remember which interview I said what, except that I said more or less the same thing at every time.
In the first interview that you had that was at your house,
Yeah.
did the police ask you about hearing any noises?
Yes.
Okay, and was it then that you remembered the firecrackers that you heard the night before?
It was actually when my son said to me, because I never connected a murder with the sounds that I was hearing. And when I'd heard that there was a murder on the street, It was only when my son said, "Oh, Mom, that's what I was telling you. Those were shotguns." So I only then did I click what I was hearing as to what was going on.
Did you tell the police when you
So
talked
maybe
to
that's
them the
not
next
what you
morning
was
that you
hearing.
think you've heard 6 shots?
Uh,
6 sounds, 6 separate
Yeah,
sounds.
I know it was in excess of 6. I mean, it was.
So you gave them a number that you recall, correct?
I believe it was in excess of 6. I don't remember then. I mean, what I said.
And nobody showed you your notes or anything, right?
He gave me the notes. I don't know where they are.
In any event, you told them that you heard firecrackers because that was the best way you had of describing the sound.
Yes.
Now,
So that could also just be a lack of familiarity
let's
with
focus on the
these different
time.
types of
You
weapons.
said that you were in your bedroom when you heard the firecrackers,
Yes.
and you were with your son Josh.
Yes.
And was there something on television?
Yeah, there was something about an airplane crash that he was watching intermittently while talking to me.
Now, when you heard the sound, did you look at the clock?
Not specifically at that time, but had been watching the clock all the time because I wanted my daughter back in the house, and her friend was late to pick her up.
So at the time you heard the sounds, had your daughter left yet?
No, not yet.
And do you recall looking at the clock when your daughter left?
Yes.
And what was it when your daughter left?
I think it was around 10,
That's a
20,
boombox
10, 15,
in front
20,
of her to answer
somewhere
someone's
around there.
question. What is that machine?
Oh, yeah.
Correct, then, to
It's a
say
boombox.
you heard
What
the
is this
sounds
precarious
before your daughter left
machinery?
at
Yes.
10:20.
Yes.
And can you tell us about how long before your daughter left that you heard the sounds?
A maximum of 20 minutes, probably 10. I would, if you ask me to get more specific, I would say 10 minutes, somewhere up. I think it was around 10:10, somewhere around there.
And your bedroom, I believe you told us, is at the back part of the house?
Yes.
Your daughter Jennifer's bedroom is at the front of the house,
Yes.
correct? Was it normal at that time of year for all the windows in the house to be open at night?
Yeah.
Okay, so that, do you know where your daughter Jennifer was when you heard
She
these
was
sounds?
in her front room, in her bedroom in the front, waiting for her friend to come for her. So she was watching out the window.
And she was watching directly on the street.
Yes.
Do you know whether or not she reported hearing anything?
She didn't hear anything, no.
Interesting.
When did you become aware that the Menendez family was living at 722 North Elm Drive?
Oh, a few months prior to that, they had sent around a flyer for tennis lessons. And I had suggested to my kids to go and take tennis lessons there.
So that was the first contact or the first knowledge that you had that somebody had moved into that particular house?
Oh, well, I knew the previous owner, so
But you had never met the Menendezes, correct?
no,
Had you ever seen any of the family
no,
during the time they lived there?
no.
And the flyer that was passed around, was that offering tennis lessons at the house?
Yes.
And that was something that you believe the boys had passed around? Or
I'm
someone
not
else?
sure. I'm not sure who was offering the tennis lessons, but I had, I just presumed it was the kids because I'd heard they were good tennis players, and I used to hear them on the court from my bedroom.
Thank you very much.
It's funny how
Thank you.
she's even getting
No, thank
she's even
you.
getting the witness to
All right,
use the
thank
term
you,
kids
Amy.
after she refers to
Thank
them
you.
as boys.
Thank
That's
Very
one of
interesting.
one of the ways that the defense was really able to sort of frame
We'll-
things in a
we'll talk
very
about that
sympathetic
in
way
just
for the
a
defense.
little while. Let me see if the prosecution has another witness.
I do, Officer Butkus.
Нанеси свой ответный удар и победи простуду.
I also thought her like I have a question now as to her ability to remember because of the time that's passed and also the accuracy of what she does recall. because it's tainted by, she didn't hear it in the moment and say, oh, those are gunshots.
Yeah.
She was told later on something happened and then made the connection that those must have been gunshots.
Yeah.
Really, maybe it wasn't, because Rob makes a good point. They're shotgun blasts. Those don't sound anything like firecracker pops,
Yeah. Yeah, because it's like if you I mean it's been a while since I've fired any kind of a firearm, but I have done it before. I've gone to a firing
Mhm.
range before, and it's very
Same.
different, the feel and the
Same.
sound that you have from a
Yeah.
pistol to a shotgun to a black powder rifle. Like a shotgun, like you can get a bruise from the recoil if you're not holding it in
Right.
a good way. So it definitely makes a very, very loud boom as opposed to a pop. So they
Yeah.
definitely are doing a good job of like kind of like pushing on her a little bit, but not doing it too hard. Like I know I saw Rob in the
Yeah.
chat was saying that too, that they were doing such a phenomenal job of like doing that without looking like bad guys, right? Because she's a neutral witness here.
He's
But
not
it's
adverse
definitely
to them. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Like she's just one of the neighbors. She didn't even know them. She just says that she heard what she heard. But yeah, I mean, this is a perfect witness to go for perception and memory because there's no bias issue. You don't have to go after them for being like a
No.
bad person or anything like that.
No.
You can just yeah, exactly. Like what you were saying. That after that you start to question like how much she actually remembers and how much of that memory
Right.
was actually her as opposed to someone sort of filling in some details for her and then her filling in other details.
Right. Because perception and memory go to credibility, but in a different way, yet it still has the same effect. Right. So, like
Mhm.
in the credibility instruction, it'll say the witness's ability to actually observe what they said they observed and their memory of the event are all factors towards considering their credibility. That's some of the easiest things for the juries to do, to be like, I can disregard this person's testimony, not because they're a bad person, but just because they were 2 houses away at night in their house with the television on, and they thought they heard, Chinese fireworks, as she put it, when actually
Yeah.
there's supposed to be shotgun blasts. So you don't have to think that she's a bad person. And it was 4 years ago. She wasn't able to observe and she didn't hear and she can't
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah.
Very easy impeachment without having to get combative with the witness.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was interesting how they both were very soft, and how the first attorney. This is also one of the good things of being able to introduce evidence through a witness like this. Also, is it gives you an excuse to sort of get up in their space and not in an aggressive way, but to sort of
Mhm.
like make yourself familiar to them and then have a whole conversation like he did. I mean, not every judge is going to allow that, right? To allow you to like continue asking a bunch of questions. Although, I mean, if they're directly related to the photos or whatever it is that you're introducing, obviously, yes. But that's one of the downsides with technology is you don't really have the excuse to do that if you can just do it through a monitor that's right in front of
Right.
them.
Right. Unless you're
But it
me,
was
I'm getting next to those witnesses. I'm getting physically close to them. But yeah, go ahead.
yeah. And then I was going to say it was funny to me how, he also could have just gone straight for like, after asking the timing, after asking, about all these other photos and then going right into like how many acres is your home, how he slipped in there. Are you a realtor? And then she's like, she had this whole like, oh yes, I am. Like, of course,
Yeah.
like it was
Yeah.
it was more of a personal question. Like she was like, oh yes, she looks like she felt important in that,
Right.
with regard to that. And then of course the question is like, you're a realtor, you should also really know how many acres your home is.
That's
So,
right.
she was going to be more likely to like supply that information also. So I thought
Mhm.
that was really interesting.
Yeah.
KWNY Upstate says, why do people insist on killing people close to them where they obviously will be the prime suspects?
Yeah.
Well, according to these guys, it's because of a lifetime of torture. So I don't know if that's going to be convincing from the testimony, but
Mhm.
we'll see.
It's also like the
Um,
opposite of absence makes the heart grow fonder. Because
yeah,
like you're really close to that person, they can annoy you a lot. I'm putting this situation aside, but a lot of violence comes between family members and loved ones, and it's because they're always around each other. Mhm.
yeah, fair point too. And then Fallstar says, if you suspect there's a hybristophiliac in the jury, what would you do? That's somebody who's like who has a I had to Google this. I have to be honest.
I don't know what
It's,
that word means.
it's someone who has an interest or attraction to those who commit crimes.
Oh, I want that
So-
person in my jury.
As a defense attorney, you do, yeah. As a
Yeah.
prosecutor, no. But I don't know, like, how would that come about during jury selection?
In Maryland, there's just no way you could really figure that out because we don't barely get to ask them any questions. But I'm sure in a place like New York or California where you can actually speak to the potential jurors, you might be able to suss that out, whether or not this person has the hots for criminal defendants.
I don't know, man. It's weird. It's weird. All right. So with that, let's continue with the testimony here.
Is it mute on your end too?
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
If we
My
know
bad.
in advance
That was
when
a
you won't be needed.
that was a panic mute from the ad that was like blowing
I'll
up in my
consult
ears.
with counsel on that, and as soon as I'm aware of any such dates, we'll let everyone know and give you that information, and I'll provide you with a schedule as soon as I have some information about that. Yes, I do.
Michael Butkus, Michael Butkus.
So,
For a living, please.
I'm a police officer for the city of Beverly Hills.
and that name is
On
definitely a
August
Lithuanian
the
name.
20th of 1989, were you also employed as a police officer for the city of Beverly Hills?
Yes, I was working patrol,
How long
Poor
had you been a
Officer
police
Butkus.
officer at the time, sir?
approximately
Yeah.
7 years.
And so as of now, you've been a police officer approximately 11 years?
At that time, correction, I've been a police officer now for 8 years. 4 years ago, I would have been a police officer at that time for 4 years.
So it actually
On
should be
August the
pronounced
20th of
Butkus, but
1989,
Lithuanian, it's fine.
11:47 p.m. Were you in a radio car?
Yes, I was with a partner.
Could you tell us your partner's name and please spell it for the court reporter?
His name is John Zernacki, JohnCzarnocki, I believe.
Now, Officer Butkus, sometime around 11:47, did you receive a radio call which sent you to an address?
Yes, I did.
Do you recall from whom you received the radio call?
From the Beverly Hills Police dispatcher.
Was that Ms. Nye or a male?
It was Ms. Nye.
And at that time, did you then proceed to 722 North Elm Drive?
Yes, I did.
When you got to 722 North Elm Drive, were you the first police unit on the scene?
Yes, my partner and I were in the car, and we approached that address in a southbound type direction, parking approximately 2 houses away from 722.
Did you also park on the west side of the street?
I don't recall the exact side of the street.
What did you do then?
I then exited the car with my partner, and on foot, we approached the house.
What happened then?
We stopped for a moment, approximately a minute and a half went by when I heard some screaming from the front of 722 North Elm.
Where were you physically located when you first heard the screaming?
I would be on the east curb. The house is on the east side of the street, so I was on the curb.
At that time, did you have a weapon drawn?
No, not just yet.
Did you know what to expect when you got there?
Well, receiving the call that there had possibly been a shooting, I didn't know exactly what to expect. So
Was that the total of the information that you had when you approached the location?
that was all we had.
So you heard some screaming, is that correct?
Yes.
Could you tell from where the screaming was coming?
It was coming from the front door of the house, 722.
Could you tell at that time if the door was open or closed?
I could not. The entire area was nighttime. Obviously, it was very dark. The streetlights were the only illumination, and the house was not illuminated in any way, any other light type of lighting. So it was very dark.
Was there any sort of impediment between you and the house?
Yes, there's a steel gate that surrounds the perimeter of the house.
Was any portion of the gate open when you first noticed it that night?
I believe there's a front entrance with swinging gates that one of them, I think, was open.
And what happened after you heard the screaming?
And then two individuals came running from the front door of that house towards the curb where I was positioned.
And at that time, did you make contact with those two individuals?
We made contact with two individuals.
And do you see them in court today?
Seated at counsel's table, defendant
What's he
one.
wearing? What color is he wearing today?
He has a pink shirt with a white sweater on.
Referring to the defendant, Lyle Menendez.
And do you see the other person?
Yes, other defendant in the blue shirt with the burgundy tie.
That's the defendant, Erik and Lyle.
Thank you, Your Honor. What did you do next? In other words, did you tell them to do something? Did you do something? What happened?
Well, they were together. They came running out towards the front of the house where I was positioned, still yelling and screaming. And they made their way to the curb where I was, at which time I told them, believe I had a weapon drawn, possibly, telling them to get down on the ground, both of them, at which time they both complied.
And when you say they were yelling and screaming, were both of them yelling and screaming?
I couldn't tell if both of them, I don't recall.
When they came out of the house, did you know who they were, what relationship they were to why you were there?
No, I did not.
Now, you told them to sit on the curb, is that correct?
I told them to just get down on the ground.
Okay, so in what manner did they, in fact, get on the ground?
They both went down onto all fours and then later into a sitting position.
Okay, did you ever do what's known as prone them out?
I guess you could call that proning out on the curb area there, yes.
Could you tell the jury what proning out is?
Is when you ask a subject to get down on the ground, you're proning them out, meaning lay down on the ground with your belly on the ground and your hands and legs also on the ground, and hopefully with the face down.
Okay, did they in fact do that?
For a moment, yes.
Okay. After that happened, what did they do?
They got into a seated type of position where I tried to ask them questions to decipher what was going on.
Okay, and do you remember which of the two you asked, or did you ask both of them, or how did that work?
I just asked both of them simultaneously.
And where were they physically located? Were they next to each other? Was there any distance between them?
They're next to each other, maybe a foot apart.
Were they seated?
Yes, they were on the a grassy area on the curb.
Was that the grassy area between the sidewalk and the curb, or between the sidewalk and the house?
Between the street and the sidewalk, the grass median.
So you asked them questions, is that correct?
Yes, I did.
What kinds of questions did you ask?
I wanted to find out what was going on inside, if someone had been shot, if there was a suspect still inside the house.
And what did you find out?
At the time, they were very distraught, and they were uncooperative in giving any type of answers to that. They just kept saying the same old phrases over and over.
And what was the phrase?
Oh my God, oh my God. And this continued for a while, approximately 1 or 2 minutes, where I continued to ask the same questions over and over, at which point they were still moving from a seated position back to all fours on the ground position, banging their fists on the ground. And I don't recall which defendant took his hand and pointed towards the house and continually kept saying, just go inside and see, just go see. That was the only type of response I got from them.
During the period of time that you were trying to converse with the defendants, did other units arrive at the scene?
Yes, there were other units at the scene.
And about how long after you first arrived was it that you noticed the presence of other units?
Almost immediately, there were other backup units there.
After one of the two defendants said, just go see, what happened then?
Then the sergeant on the scene approached me with a number of other officers, and due to the fact that we weren't getting any workable information from the two defendants, there was a necessity to go into the house to find a suspect or possibly someone who had been shot or injured.
Were either of the two defendants crying when you saw them?
Nothing that I would say was real crying, in my opinion.
Well, did you see any tears?
It was very dark. Their faces were a reddish color, but I don't recall seeing what I would say real teardrops coming off their face or anything.
Okay. Now, after you were told go see, did someone in fact go in the house?
Yes, the sergeant set up a number of a unit to go in and check the house, which I was a part of. There was a number of officers with the sergeant.
And so you went inside the house, is that correct?
Yes, with the other members to search the house.
Was someone left behind to stay by the defendants?
Yes, another officer took them over to, I think, a patrol car to be seated in. I'm not sure.
Do you know the name of that other officer?
I recall 4 years ago, it was Officer Angel, who's no longer with the department.
Okay. And then you went inside of the house, is that correct?
We developed some type of plan, and then we, yes, prepared to enter the house.
And did you in fact go inside of the house that day in order to determine what had happened inside?
Yes, I did.
Okay, thank you. May I have a moment, please? I have no further questions of this witness at this time.
Cross-examination?
I just have a moment, Your Honor.
The state's witnesses are boring.
Yeah, a little bit.
Officer, when you first met the two people coming out of the house, it's true, is it not, that they were very distraught and upset?
Yes,
And that's a description that you also told the grand jury in this case,
yes, it
correct?
is.
That they were both very distraught and upset.
Appeared to be in that, yes.
And when you told them to get on the ground, they did so immediately, isn't that true?
Yes,
You said it was very dark that night, is that correct?
yes. Well, describing the area around the house as being dark, no real illumination other than the street lamps on that street.
You remember at the grand jury proceeding, you were asked whether you saw any blood on either one, and you said, gee, it was too dark, I really didn't notice.
I was asked that, and that was my reply.
And is it true that your main focus when you first met up with the two gentlemen coming out of the house was to get into the house to see if there was any suspects in there?
Or the nature of the call was a shooting, so I was concerned that someone might be inside that had been shot, also to find if there was a victim that needed medical assistance.
And you don't know whether they were crying or not before you arrived, correct?
I don't know whether they're crying. No, I do not.
You've never seen them before,
I've never seen them before.
and you don't know how they act when they're distraught and upset, do you?
No, I do not.
That's all I have, thank you.
He didn't need those last few questions because he'd already conceded that they were upset when he arrived.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. You may step down.
Thank you.
Your next witness.
Your Honor, I have
Wow.
no witness for today.
Oops. Okay. Sorry.
All
We're not
right,
quite at
then we'll
an ad yet.
be in recess in a moment until tomorrow. Before I excuse both juries, let me say a few things to both groups here. As of now, you've just started to hear some evidence in the case when the first witness took the witness stand and began testifying, and you've heard so far 3 witnesses testify, and there will be many more before the case has been completely presented to you. And it's important that you keep an open mind on this subject until you've heard all of the witnesses and all of the evidence. And it's also important that you make your decision based only on the evidence that you see in this courtroom. There is a temptation, I'm sure, to go home and watch the TV and see what they report about this case and how it's covered on the television or in the newspaper. You must resist that temptation, however. It's imperative that you make your decision based only on what is presented to you in this courtroom. And the only way you can do that is to confine yourself to information that you obtain only from this courtroom. We'll resume tomorrow at 9 o'clock and have more evidence at that point. What I'm going to ask is that all of you leave your notebooks there and the court staff will collect them. When you return tomorrow, the jury that is in the box, the jury for the defendant, Erik Menendez, if you would come into the courtroom and go into the jury room, and you'll be the jurors in the jury box this week. And the jurors for the defendant, Lyle Menendez, if you would go next door tomorrow, that's the courtroom right next door. It's apartment O, right here. And that's a courtroom that's doing civil cases, but they have a jury room in there, and they'll be able to put you in the jury room. The sheriff will meet you there and put you in the jury room until we're ready to have you come into the courtroom, and then we'll have you come in. So that'll be a place for you to gather when until court is in session, and then we'll switch off with the other jury doing the same.
All right. I think that's going to be about it for that one. So I'm going to pull up the next day's testimony where we can get on to the next witnesses. So yeah, I feel like it's kind of maybe not the best thing that I feel much more alert when the cross-examination is going on so far.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm glad you're saying that because I'm biased, right? So it's always like, I'm like criticizing how the prosecutor's asking questions and like things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly and truly, I feel like I'm not getting a full picture of the story until the cross-examination happens. And that's why they tell you to keep an open mind, because you really don't know everything until you hear everything. But I'm really not getting the full story from the state's case. It makes me wonder if they're holding back some things that are more mitigating and leaving it to the defense to bring that out. I don't know.
Yeah. Definitely could be. But yeah, I just also, I'm as we're 3 witnesses deep now, I still feel like they shouldn't have started with the witnesses that they did in that particular order. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe my mind will change.
I
As we
mean,
go
I
along.
see calling Butkus early because he's first on scene.
Yeah. Like he maybe
Mhm.
should have been the first one, because then it's like, you as the jury, you can kind of be sort of like discovering the crime scene as he's discovering the crime scene.
Yeah. But then we
So,
don't
like-
really though. He doesn't really do that. He's like, I come, I tell them to get down on the ground, and then another guy stays with them, and then I go inside.
Yeah.
And I really don't like get what he's seen or anything like that. Like it feels kind of sanitized.
It does.
Weird. You want your jury to emotionally invest in your double homicide trial. So you really do want to not sanitize it. You want them to, be invested in why they're there. So I don't know. I'm still keeping an open mind because, again, I'm learning about this trial for the first time. Maybe I would think about it differently if I knew more about the trial, like if I researched it. But I'm learning about it right now, and I just don't feel like I'm learning all that much.
Yeah. Fair. All right. On to the next one.
And there were some charts in the report.
So I guess we've got some motion argument first.
And based on the fact that we haven't had an opportunity to review those materials, I believe Mrs. Kazanich indicated that she would put that witness over until tomorrow, because we would not be prepared to deal with that witness without additional time to submit his report and a description of these charts to our forensics expert before we attempt to cross-examine. Am I correct?
Yes, I can make a representation though, if you're concerned about this pellet pattern chart. The testimony is very general. He said that without the weapon, you can't really say anything definite. So you might want to pass that on.
Well, and you might want to object on relevancy, but that's the sort of information that we don't quite have yet.
All right, if you have worked something out, then you don't have to bring it to my attention. What else?
Well, I just check verify whether he's not on for this morning.
I will postpone him until tomorrow. And in addition on this, does the court have a list?
I just got it, yes.
Okay. Mr. Berman also will not be here until tomorrow. And as to Deputy Van Horn, we're going to have to do a brief 402 on the issue of whether he can use a Mossberg shotgun that is not one of the weapons in this case, but is similar to it for demonstrative purposes. And I believe there's a defense objection. I indicated to the defense I would not bring the gun into the courtroom around the jury until the court had ruled. So that's something that we might be able to deal with today. And then when he comes back tomorrow, we can either leave it behind or not.
So we need a 402 on what the purpose of that testimony is, whether there's any disputed issue that it's appropriate for the people to deal with in their case in chief, if that witness's use of the shotgun is supposed to address.
So you have a potential objection that you wish to articulate. All right, then, if there is such, you may do that at the appropriate time. What else before we get started?
The other matter is that the people have indicated on this chart that there are evidentiary issues to be resolved on or before July 22nd, having to do with the Hotel Bel Air stay, the Marina City Club purchase. Those two issues, we have witnesses that we would want to put on in a 402 so the court can measure the probative value of their evidence, and I can't assure the court at this point that I can have those witnesses available on or before July 22nd. I can do my best, but I'll need some time to contact them when we're not in session. I think and I'm not sure whether people have any issues relating to the conversations in New Jersey with Detective Zoller. I'm not sure what their offer of proof is with respect to those conversations.
All right, why don't you talk to the prosecution informally and see if that can be resolved?
Your Honor, I believe that Ms. Morrissey and Mr. Coriano spoke yesterday about the statement that was made by Erik and Menendez, and they have objections to the relevancy of certain portions of that transcript which we disagree with, or with which we disagree, pardon me. And so that may be something that the court's going to have to resolve. But I just wanted, I was trying when I put this list together to notify the court in advance of the things that we felt would require hearings outside the presence of the jury. In addition, I appear to have come down with a stomach flu and have a fever. And so evidently the defendant's attorney throws straws to see who would have to sit next to me. But it appears that if we could this afternoon put on Sergeant Edmonds for the two tape conversations and whatever other witnesses from this morning go into this afternoon and then recess. If the court looks at this list, I think it's apparent that there's a good chance we're going to run out of witnesses before Dr. Golden returns from his vacation on the 2nd of August, because some of these days may not be filled. And so I think I informed the court earlier that Dr. Golden was away. And so I think we have enough leeway so that we will be resting on or about the 3rd of August, in spite of delays and 402s and things like that.
All right.
Concerning the drawing of straws, and I don't want to sound harsh, but it's been my experience in trials before that when one participant gets sick, the likelihood of everyone else getting it is very high, particularly the defendants.
It's pre-COVID world.
Their health is not usually as good as people who are not living in jail, and I do have that.
Oh, how things have changed.
I had suggested.
I know, right?
She was ill and she should probably be home recuperating, but she's quite Spartan in her approach.
Well, obviously, the court's concern is the well-being of the participants in the trial in general, and more specifically as it relates to the progress of the trial. And I can only rely upon input from counsel as to how you feel. And you'll have to let me know as to whether you can continue or not.
Okay, so far so good.
All right.
Thank you.
And as far as evidentiary matters, as they are presented to me, if you can isolate what issues you want to address specifically rather than general terms of reference to things that might be objectionable in someone's statement, but more specifically what there is objections to, then I can focus on them. At this point, there doesn't appear to be any objections to any of the testimony that is going to be offered this morning.
Yes, Your Honor, I believe Sergeant West, Mr. Anderson, and Detective Zoller, and Mr. Catalani are all people who can testify without a 402 first.
So a 402 Annie Mae wholesale, they're referring to the analysis required for whether evidence gets in or not, whether testimony comes in or not. The probative value has to outweigh the prejudicial effect
No,
of
I'm
it.
not going to list that.
In other words, it has to be more
All
relevant than
right, then,
prejudicial.
as I understand it, the schedule as presented by council indicates that there will be no session in the morning on Friday, since counsel for Erik Menendez have other court appearances. There are no witnesses available who would testify solely in regards to Lyle Menendez, which was my suggestion, that we use that time to have the jury hear matters that relate only to Lyle Menendez, but apparently there are no witnesses available Friday. And that in the afternoon on Friday, it's the intention of the parties to proceed with the testimony of Craig Signorelli for Erik Menendez's jury only. Is that the understanding of all parties here, so that when these jurors come out, I can so inform them? And that everyone will be ready to proceed Friday afternoon with Erik Menendez's jury and the testimony of Craig Signorelli. Is that correct?
Yes, and we'll be prepared Thursday afternoon to do 402 issues with respect to Mr. Signorelli.
Eileen, yes, they have
All right,
two
and if
separate
you have
juries,
any
one
specific
trial,
items that
essentially.
have not yet been briefed, you should file that with the court prior to that date so the court can review them.
Well, Your Honor, we didn't brief in detail, but we did make reference to, with respect to Mr. Signorelli, an objection to any discussion by him of discussions with my client in the past concerning fantasies of perfect crimes. So we did raise.
Okay, I don't want to consume the time now. If there is anything specific that you have, then put it in writing or focus my attention on it rather than just blurting it out here when we're discussing other matters. We have a jury that's waiting, and this trial has been pending for many months and many years, and to get to all these objections, I feel that there should be some advance notice to the court of the specifics. So just do it, and do it in writing rather than consuming this court time right now that could be used with the jury in the courtroom. And as far as Mr. Whitkin's testimony is concerned, he is testifying sometime in the future. Is that right?
Let me see what put him. You know what? I think I forgot Mr. Wood. No, there he is. Thursday, July 22nd.
All right.
How old were the
I have
Menendez
again
brothers
reviewed
at this time?
They
the
were,
memoranda filed on
they were like
behalf of Lyle
23 and
Menendez. I didn't
25.
find any objection to that reference
Yeah,
that
because
was
one
made
was-
by
Oh, so not
Mrs.
kids.
Bozanich
No.
to a
Okay.
quote
Yeah,
from
that's-
the
they're
defendant, Lyle
adults.
Menendez.
Okay.
yeah, that's why it's like,
The
it's a really
description
funny
of
thing,
Mr.
how like the
Whitkin.
perception of
Perhaps
them
you
is that they
could
were like,
find
they're
that for
just
me, Mr.
kids,
Burt.
they're just kids, you
City
know?
pleadings relating to.
They weren't, they both were definitely
Well, that
adults when it happened.
hardly relates to an objection to the
Well,
introduction of that during the
point
trial.
Yesterday, is prosecution mentioned inadmissible evidence, and whether the defense objected to it or not, if it was clearly inadmissible prejudicial evidence, it would have been misconduct. So I don't think we've waived anything by the fact that the court wasn't able to pinpoint in the moving paper somewhere that we've raised the objection. We indicated to the court yesterday we do have an objection to that evidence, and whenever the court would like to rule on that objection, we'd be prepared to argue.
Okay, well, the first time you indicated you had an objection to that evidence was after the reference by the prosecution in its opening statement, as far as I'm concerned. Making some reference to it in a 995 motion that's deals with all sorts of other issues hardly gives the court notice of it.
Now,
Wait.
the point there was that the prosecution had noticed that that was an item that we were objecting to.
Okay.
And that reflected on the issue of prosecutorial misconduct. And that was the only point in raising to the court that it had been brought to her attention that that was something we were objecting to.
All right, let's see if we have a bailiff go in there and see if there's some problem with a juror that, as far as somebody want to get
Your
out.
Honor, if I need to leave the courtroom in a hurry, could I do so without asking permission in advance?
Yes, and
without-
if you do leave, is it at the same point a request for a recess,
No,
or do you want to
just continue
continue?
on, unless I'm doing the questioning.
All right.
Aside from that.
Okay.
Alita, they were saying they were actually 18 and 21 when the murders happened.
Yes.
That's what I saw on the
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
comments.
I thought we were talking about during this trial, which was 4 years later.
Yeah, no, I was
Yeah.
too, but yeah.
Yeah. So
They're grown right now, as they say.
yeah.
And counsel, you're going to have to get
but
rid of those
at the
cups on
time
the
of the
council
shootings,
table.
at the time of the shootings, they definitely were technically adults, young adults, but adults nonetheless.
By finding a trash receptacle.
Could you get us some later in the library or in the office?
Everything okay? All right, then, if everyone is ready, we'll have both juries come in and then we'll proceed. Take a short recess until both juries are in.
Oh,
Why is it both juries?
whoops. Sorry. Hang on.
The Russian commercials are funny. Why is it both juries? Why does he say both juries?
Oh, because they actually have two juries, two separate juries for this. They're running two overlapping trials.
Have I ever heard of that before? Because of the two co-defendants?
Yeah.
One jury is only supposed to decide evidence as to one defendant, but they're
Mhm.
hearing the evidence as to both.
Mm-hmm. Well, there may be some witnesses, they said, where they'll have one jury that is out of the room during some testimony versus another. For the opening statements, they only had one jury, one set of jurors in the room at a time. So, yeah. So the first witness that we heard from at the beginning of this live stream was the first time that all of them were sitting together and like doing something together. It's so strange.
Like that. I would not. That's
It was
weird.
It was actually the defense that requested it. I remember Nate had a whole explanation on how that happened. But yeah. I mean, I don't know. It ended in a mistrial, so I guess it ended up being a good thing for the defense because on the second time around, they only had one jury, I think.
One jury, yeah.
Yeah.
That is so bizarre. I've never heard of that before. Never. I'm going to have to put some, I'm sorry, I don't want to like derail, but I just can't have to put some thought into that. That is weird. And the defense having that idea, first of all, I don't want my clients tried together. I guess that's them mitigating the clients being tried together. They couldn't get them separate, I'm assuming. And so they're saying they'll have separate consideration of the how are you going to keep track of which jury is supposed to hear what? Like, no way. That sounds like such a bad idea.
I think probably most of it was overlapping. So yeah. I mean, we'll find out because the judge will say like if the jury is one set of jurors is outside of the room. I don't know.
Weird. Why was there a mistrial? Why was there a mistrial?
The jury just couldn't come to a conclusion, I guess, or juries.
Oh, it was a hung jury. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like neither side like brokered a mistrial and like did something they shouldn't have done. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. This is fascinating. I'm so fascinated. This is so bizarre. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
All right.
Sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
Wow.
No worries. And let's see here. Oh, and also let me get a couple questions here. Okay. So Love Living Peach Dreams, his question, does the law or the procedures seem very different then or mostly the same? Mostly the same, I'd say. I mean, I think she's asking about the basic procedure in the courtroom. Like, do things look more or less? I mean, other than this whole like two separate juries thing is definitely weird.
Not the same because there are two separate juries in the. I am blown away. There are two separate juries in the courtroom.
I would say, aside from that, though, everything else is fairly normal. Like the way that they're going about things. I still don't like the fact that everyone is at that same crowded table there. You know, you've got the
Yeah.
prosecution and then the defense, and everyone is like, it's like
Yeah.
everybody's like elbows out, you know. I
Yeah.
don't like that at all, but I mean, I don't know how normal that is in California criminal court. You know what? Emily
No
would probably
idea.
know.
Yeah.
Emily
Yeah.
would know.
Yeah. I don't want to share a table. So the defense and the prosecution are sharing a table right now.
Mm-hmm.
What is going on in there? This is
Yeah.
the strangest trial. Like, what in the world? The
Yeah.
defense and the prosecution are at the same table, and there's 24 or 28 people sitting in there on the jury. There's 2 separate juries, and the defense and the prosecutor are sharing a table. It almost feels like another country. What's happening?
Yeah, that is strange. It is strange. Marie Garoun says, question, if I understand correctly, there's a double jury because they are brothers and defendants of the same crimes. Can it happen within parents or other kind of defendants? I mean, it's very, very, very rare. I would say hypothetically it's possible because it's possible here, right? But super rare.
I can't comment on this because it literally, I feel like, is it Halloween or April Fool's? Like, I feel like someone's playing a trick on me. I would love to
No
hear
tricks.
you explain this. Like, it just like, I hear the judge saying juries and I cannot get over it. It's so, sorry. I know your audience must be so annoyed with me right now. I've just never heard of anything like that before. That's so weird.
No, it's good. It's good to have you like confirm that, just how weird that is.
It's so weird.
Yeah. Okay, Mantha Johnny says, question, Legalbytes. I'm not sure if this was asked before, but why do they ask you to confirm and spell your name? It's for the record, just so that they can the person the stenographer, the court reporter, so that they can get the name down correctly and not have to go back for information. Because while you're there, they might as well get that from you as efficiently as possible. Okay. So, all right. We can let's go on with testimony.
I do.
Stand and state your name for the record.
It's Kirk West, W-E-S-T. Right.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. West, what is your occupation and assignment, sir?
I'm a sergeant with the Beverly Hills Police Department. I'm assigned to the patrol division.
And how long have you been so employed?
17 years.
Were you on duty on the night of August 20th, 1989?
Yes.
Shortly before midnight, were you dispatched to the location at 722 North Elm Street, Elm Drive in Beverly Hills?
Yes, I was.
What was the nature of that call?
I believe the call was a shooting just occurred.
And what did you observe when you arrived at that location?
I was one of the last units actually to arrive there, and my car was parked 3 or 4 doors south. So I didn't really see that much of the house at that time.
What did you see or notice about the location?
Other than the fact that there were a number of police cars in the area, they'd already set up a containment perimeter on the house.
Your question?
Yes.
Sergeant West, I'm going to show you a photograph. I believe it'll be Exhibit 5, Your Honor.
Yes.
Take a look at that photograph. Do you recognize what's depicted in that photograph, sir?
Yes, that is the front of the house.
Would you describe for the jurors what you did when you arrived at that location?
After I arrived, I went up to the front of the house. Although it's not shown in this photograph, there are some driveway gates, which would be just off to the left. That's actually where I went in and onto the property, and I met there with Lieutenant Frank Salcido.
Was he the supervising officer at the scene?
Yes, he was.
Did you have some discussion with your lieutenant?
Yes, he made a decision that we were going to take a search team into the house.
Were you assigned to perform the search?
Yes, I was.
Okay. Did you actually do the search yourself?
No, I brought 2 backup officers in with me.
How many people were involved in the search team?
Initially, it was myself and 2 officers, and later it grew to myself and I believe it would have been 5 officers total.
Do you recall who those officers were?
The initial officers that went in with me were Officer Don Prenesti and Officer Michael Dillard.
And did you have backup officers as well?
Yes, I did.
Do you recall who those officers were?
Initially, my first 2 backup officers were Officer Mike Butkus and Officer John Zarnacki.
Now, what was the purpose of this search?
It was essentially to check the house for victims and possibly suspects.
The nature of the call was a shooting at that location?
Yes.
Would you describe for the
This is who you
jurors
start
what it
with.
is in particular that you did
What's that?
in commencing this search?
I think this is who you should start with.
To
Agreed.
begin the search,
Agreed.
Initially, I was the one that made entry into the house and went across the foyer. Prior to actually making entry into the house and going across the foyer, there was a small den that was off to my left. The doors on that den were open. And before I actually went into the house, I used my baton and I reached in through the open door and closed the doors on this den. Then I made entry into the house.
Were the lights on to the residence?
Some of the lights were. There was a light on in the foyer area. I believe the small den area that I closed the doors on had a very dim light on inside of it. And directly at the back of the hallway or the foyer, there was a family room of some type that the lights were on in there.
As you approached the front door, is that door depicted on Exhibit 5?
Yes, it is.
And you entered into that door
Yes.
along with your search team?
I initially entered first, and they waited by the doors till I gave them a sign to come in.
After you entered the door, you indicated that you did something with your, what was it, flashlight?
Initially?
Yes.
Initially, before I even made my entry, I took my flashlight and actually skipped it across the foyer floor towards the back of it, feeling that if there was a suspect in there, it would act as a distraction.
And then what did you do?
I took up a position at the east end of the foyer against the wall.
And what did your fellow officers do at that point?
They made their entry at that point, and I directed them to search what appeared to be a living room area, which would have been on the right of the foyer as you entered.
And I have a diagram of the floor plan of 722 North Elm Drive. May I have that marked as Exhibit 6?
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh. So funny how they have to pin things up onto a
Person
cork
West.
board.
Can you see this chart?
Yes.
Chart this way. Do you recognize what's depicted in that diagram, sir?
Yes, that's the first floor of the residence.
And as you
Pretty big.
indicated, you entered the front doors, correct?
Yes.
Would you step down here and show the jurors what you entered?
I actually made the entry through here and came all the way across to the east end of that wall.
Excuse me.
You'd be probably better off if you stood in the witness area there, and so everyone can see.
In through here and all the way across to that wall there.
Why don't you get a pointer and stand up over here where the witness stand is, right? Get back where the seat is, and get inside there and use a pointer.
Okay.
I made my entry through here, all the way across, and took up a position here.
And perhaps you can describe that for the record.
It's referring to the left side of the diagram where it indicates 2 doors and an entry area, across to the right to where it is indicated stairs. next to the bathroom.
It's not even blown up so you can really see it.
Yeah, I know.
What did you do at that point?
At that point, I directed my two officers, excuse me, to enter and do a quick search of this living room area.
Was anything of note seen there?
No.
What did you do? What did you do then?
At that point, I indicated to the officers to go ahead and just hold their positions at the living room, and I told them that I was going to take a quick look in this room behind me here, which is the family room.
And did you do so?
Yes, I did.
And did you notice anything unusual inside of that room?
Yes. When I took my first look in on the sofa, there was a male seated on the sofa, and there was a female lying on the floor just in front of the sofa.
Your Honor, I have another photograph. I have that marked as Exhibit 7.
All right, Exhibit 7.
Thank you. When you looked into the family room, what is it that you saw?
Pretty much as that photograph depicts it.
That's Exhibit
The male and the female there.
Exhibit 7. Now, what is it that you noticed in particular about the persons? Well, there's one person seated on a couch and another, a female, lying on the ground in front of him.
Whoa.
Correct?
That's correct.
Graphic.
Perhaps move this microphone.
A little bit of a
towards the lips
warning.
little bit while he's standing up.
Would have been nice.
Here, a little bit.
Also, perhaps
At least it's a little bit grainy for our purposes.
So I don't want to raise it, so it can be seen over the.
Wow, I was surprised. I didn't know they were going to just show their bodies like that.
Yeah. By the way, Melissa Stimmock, thanks so much for your super chat. She says, this happened before I moved to LA, just realizing how many times I've driven past this house. Thanks for covering these classic trials. Of course, thanks for watching. Wow. That's...
All right, your next question.
Thank you.
Okay.
Did you actually go into the family room and examine the persons depicted in the photograph?
Yes, I did.
What did you do?
I initially, I initially checked the room to make sure there weren't additional victims or suspects in the room. And without touching the victims, I used my flashlight and made a very cursory examination of them.
What-
Speak up.
Could you repeat that, Sergeant West?
Yes, after I went in, I made a search of the room for victims or additional suspects. And then I made a cursory examination of the two people there.
Okay, we have two juries here, one in the jury box, one in the audience. They all have to be able to hear you.
Yes, sir.
What is it that you did in examining these two persons?
Okay. Thanks, Care Bear, for the warning.
On the male, I looked for any signs of respiration, which I did not see.
Okay.
He had a very large
inappropriate photos of the
wound
kids.
on his
Okay,
leg,
thanks for the warning, Celeste.
which I noticed was not bleeding.
Ay.
There was a large amount of blood around him and on his clothing. And I also noticed that there was a
That's the
large
allegation.
portion of the back of his head was missing.
And with respect to the female that's lying on the floor in front of him?
On the female, again, it was the large amount of blood that I noticed. She also had some very large wounds on her that were not bleeding at all. I did not notice any respiration from her either. I was able to look at her one eye. It appeared to be fixed. And she appeared to have one or two maybe wounds to the head also.
Did you come to any conclusions about the nature of the wounds, the type of weapon used?
Yes, I had a feeling that a shotgun had been used.
Now, when you say you have a feeling, what is it that you base that feeling on?
In this photograph here, you can see a louvered door. It's a wooden door. And from my position when I looked, I could see what I recognized to be a shot pattern or a portion of a shot pattern in that door, which indicated to me a shotgun
Have you shot shotguns yourself?
many times.
So you're familiar with what sort of shot would come out of a shotgun?
Yes,
And did that appear to be the type of shot that you're familiar with?
yes.
Now, when you shoot a shotgun, is there smoke involved?
Quite a bit.
Did you see any smoke that night in that room?
No, none at all.
Did you smell smoke?
No.
Well, probably would have dissipated.
You can be seated.
Yeah, I don't know why you'd expect to still see smoke.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's weird.
That seems like a cross-examination question.
Sergeant West, did you at any time touch either of the persons depicted in that photograph?
No, I did not.
Did any of your fellow officers that were involved in the search team ever move either of those persons?
No, they did not.
Believing at that point that there had been shotguns used in this.
Objection, this is the testimony.
I heard the question.
I'll continue. Believing that a shotgun was used here, did you look around that scene to determine whether or not there were any shell casings located in that area?
Yes, I did.
Were there any?
I didn't observe any.
Now, as you entered into that family room, what do you recall about the interior?
Primarily that the lights were on as I entered, and there was a television, which I guess would have been on the north wall of the family room, that was also on.
As the sofa in that exhibit shows, there's a male who's seated on that sofa, correct?
That's correct.
With respect to the television set, where would that have been located?
It would be directly across from you.
Would he have been facing the television set then?
Yes.
Other than the television set being on and the light being on, what else did you notice about that room?
Other than that, that's the things that stick out the most in my mind.
Could you actually hear the television?
Oh, yes.
So it was on and the volume was on as well.
Yes, it was.
When was it that you first noticed that the television was on? Could you hear something coming from that room prior to entering into the room?
When I was at the front doors of the house, prior to even going in, I could hear the television on at that time.
At the front door?
Yes.
At some point, did you complete your search of that particular room, the family room?
Yes.
And what did you do then?
After we completed the family room, then I moved on into a kitchen area and searched that area, on to the back of the house, which I believe there's maid's quarters there. Searched that. Came back through the kitchen area. There's a dining room. We searched the dining room. Came back up to that small den that I'd closed the doors on initially. We did a search of that. And then we went back and did a more thorough search of the living room.
These are all rooms that you
I
just
wouldn't like the sheriff's deputies
indicated
moving
were on the
around my
first floor,
client
is that
that much
correct?
during the
That's
trial.
correct.
Is there a second floor?
Yes.
I was also just going to say the mics are really powerful, actually, like surprisingly
And after doing
powerful. The fact that you
searches
can hear
that
the
you've
creaking of
indicated
their
so
belt.
far, did you then go upstairs?
Yes.
And would you describe for the jurors what you did?
That was at that point, prior to going upstairs, that's when I brought in the additional backup officers. Myself and Officer Steve Miller actually went up the staircase, and we had the other officers covering us as we went up. As I recall, the first room that we actually searched was, it was like a master bedroom suite. As I recall, the light was on in that room. And the only thing that we really saw in there was a small dog in the room. We continued to search the upstairs area. And we came across a closet up there. I'm not sure exactly which room it was in. I remember it had mirrored wardrobe type doors on it. And the only thing of note that we really found in there were 222 caliber rifles in that closet. And after that, we just continued the sweep of the upstairs and searched the remaining bedrooms.
I'm Vinny Politan. Welcome to.
All right.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. I found this testimony to be the most compelling so far, and we're already on day 2. Is that right?
No, this is day 2, actually. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he said we were going to break and then come back.
Exactly.
So, and then I saw some people in the comment section saying that the smoke was relevant because one of the brothers said that he like came in and saw smoke or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
that's why he had called the police, which that does make some sense. Because then it also places them very, very close to the time of the shootings. So
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, okay. So yeah, that makes sense. Now I
They're
wish that they
saying,
had started with this sergeant.
me too. I found him to be the most probative of what we're actually here for.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So we've got about 5 minutes left before we start the Brooks trial. So let's do, we'll do about another 5 minutes and then we'll head on out.
Sure. Yep.
So
And I don't
not
know
the
if
Brooks
you-
trial, but the hearing.
Yeah, so the hearing is not the sentencing, it's to schedule the sentencing. But still,
Yes.
let's go to our separate channels and watch, and then maybe we'll reconvene or something, because
Exactly.
seriously, it's very the Brooks case is very fascinating to me.
It is. It absolutely is. Okay. Well, let's go on. Okay.
Sergeant West, I'm going to show you another photograph. Appears to be the interior of 722 North Elm.
Actually, you know what? Maybe now's a good time to end it because he's going to start a new line of questioning.
Okay.
So,
but I want to
that
pick
might
back up with you when you do this again. I'm fascinated now. I'm
okay.
so
Yeah.
fascinated.
I know it's funny. This is like every time that I've like brought someone new in, they're like, "Oh, I want to come back next week because this is like this, it's such a different kind of trial and like all of the weird things that happened
So weird.
are really really fascinating."
Yeah.
So, all right. So, yeah, same time next week. Noon
All right.
on Monday, and we'll
All
be picking
right.
up right with this same witness.
All
So,
righty. Thanks for having
of
me on. I'm going to go
course.
start my stream, and I'll see you guys later.
Sounds good. Okay.
All right.
I'll see you. All
Bye.
right. And then I'll just say goodbye to the chat real quick. Well,
Okay.
I'll loop them into the next live stream.
Oh, you're so professional. Okay, bye guys.
Okay. Thanks for coming on. Okay, guys. So now we're going to hop over to the other live stream. So if you don't have it already, let me see here. I should have that tab open already. I will also put that into the chat. So you guys can go there just in case. There's the link. And I will be closing out the live stream in just a minute just to make sure that you guys have the information. So, okay. So yeah, just like Natalie said, it's not the actual sentencing hearing. It's just the scheduling for it, but it's going to be Darrell Brooks being Darrell Brooks. And now he has ostensibly nothing to lose. So who knows what's going to happen. But with that, thank you to everybody for watching and for joining us. Everybody in the chat, thank you for all the folks that sent in super chats. And of course, last but not least, thank you to the mods who are awesome as always in helping to make this space a kind and welcoming place for agreement, for disagreement, for working through things, coming from different perspectives, and hopefully arriving at a truth with a capital T. So if you guys still have time, join me in the next live stream and we will be watching the Darrell Brooks hearing. Cool. See you guys.